After going through the labyrinth to make sure it was in good condition, I visited each of the guardians. Actually, I wanted to see just how they evolved with my own eyes. Their growth was staggering. With the power they currently had in the labyrinth, I couldn't imagine them losing to the Empire. After a few days, I went to try out the observation magic I had finally finished after a bit of work. The place was the Strategic Military Control Battle Command Center, commonly known as the Control Room. The name had that tactical oomph to it. Thus, that's what I settled on with Veldora and Ramiris. After I took a step back and thought about it though, I guess it was Kindalong. In hindsight, I probably picked the wrong crowd to brainstorm with. Since Benimaru and the others simply called it the Control Room, few people knew its original name. It was newly built next to Veldora's private room on the 100th floor of the labyrinth, and could be accessed through the usual war room. If the city above ground was isolated within the labyrinth, this would serve as the main headquarters. We were absolutely prepared for war. And if the invasion never came and all of this was for nothing, I'd still count it as a win, right? The results of the observation magic turned out extremely well. The same big screens that we used during the tournament were set up to show situations from various locations. Several places in the Great Jura Forest, along the trade routes of the Dwarven Kingdom, as well as a lot of other critical places, could be surveilled at any time. Everything from the sea route bordering the Kingdom of Farminas to the peak of the Canid Mountains, all of it was projected in full detail. The principle behind it was simple. Lens-shaped water droplets that I had devised for the physical magic Megiddo were controlled by spirits. The huge lenses that I deployed near the stratosphere reflected a magnified view of the target destination. And by reflecting it, they transmitted a detail-rich video of the place. Taking a page out of Moss's book, I had sent out a herd of tiny slimes, each a clone, and used them as a medium to activate the magic on site. Because of that, they were all connected to my main body through spatial domination, allowing for an instant data link, which meant that I could enjoy zero-latency streaming. My clones were too tiny to act autonomously, which had the added benefit of requiring no magicules, so long as I didn't consciously act on them. On the flip side, moving them to the places I wanted to see was quite the challenge, but Saoi and Moss handled that for me quite well. It was a very handy, low-cost solution. I named this physical magic Argus, the Eye of God. The feed to the monitor was highly accurate after being processed by Wisdom King Raphael. The close-up view of whatever distant area could be enjoyed from the warmth of the control room. The completion of this magic system was a delight to everyone. Especially Diablo, who was over the moon, but let's ignore that. Next, the surveillance system actually had another benefit that we only found after it was finished. Now people could activate Megiddo in the place shown on screen while they were in the control room. I tinkered around with it for a bit and was stunned. I fired a beam at Gopta's feet while he was training in a clearing, but I didn't expect it to work so well. I'll never forget the look on Gopta's face as he jumped in shock. Idiot. It's because you're not paying attention. I may have told him off, but I didn't think it was his fault. Megiddo's performance had also improved. Originally, Great Sage had optimized this magic, but the current Raphael-san didn't seem to be satisfied. Following much more careful refinements, I had developed a system that used a number of lenses floating in the sky at all times, like satellites. By linking it with Argus, Megiddo could even be fired at night. Although it wasn't as powerful, I succeeded in converging the light by reflecting beams of light from one satellite lens to another. To be clear, I really did get maybe a bit carried away here, but the results spoke for themselves, so it was time well spent in my book. Powerful spirits were really the ones creating these lenses, so I just supplied them with magicules. Raphael-san was the one who did all the complicated calculations, so that made it easy to operate. During the daytime it operated at full power, of course, since that overhead became unnecessary. With more light and heat blasting through it, it was one heck of a heat ray cannon. If I were to face off against a human army, I bet I could reduce them to ashes without lifting a finger. After my little upgrades to the magic, it really seemed that strong. Satisfied with the outcome of my experiment, I returned to my office. Not a moment too soon, Shuna came by to let me know that we had guests. By that, I could see that there were quite a few guests. Let's just say that most of my time was spent meeting guests. I spent the rest just developing magic, thinking of cool new products, and ordering the right people to the right places. I was also running the labyrinth and consulting with Miles-kun, among other things. Having fun was also part of my work. With that being said, treating my guests well was very important, so I took it seriously. Shinji and the other two were waiting nervously in the guest room, which Shuna escorted me to. They were granted asylum in our country, and so we asked them for as much information as they could share with us over the last few days. Of course, this wasn't an interrogation, but a voluntary thing. We had interviewed them peacefully in separate rooms. They were allowed to do whatever they wanted to in their free time, so they could think about their decision regarding their futures. Today, they came to report that. So, have you decided what you're going to do? They were torn between the choice of working in my kingdom or becoming freelance adventurers. If they wanted to continue being adventurers, they could strike it rich by challenging the dungeon over and over. The drawback being, now that they knew how difficult the dungeon was, they couldn't see the prospect of beating it in the future. The demon colossus would be placed on the 60th floor, a boss that Shinji's crew would surely bite their teeth out on. Furthermore, even if they did beat it, Adalman and his entourage awaited them on the 70th floor. It was a checkmate. This prospect of a dead-end career had them worried, as they weren't looking forward to grinding the same floor till the end of their days. Knowing this had killed their drive to press on. In spite of the riches they'd earn, their lives would be monotonous and boring. I mean, Adalman and the others had become stronger than I expected, so I couldn't really blame the challengers of the labyrinth. Normally, them achieving such growth more like evolution was unthinkable, but I guess it couldn't be helped. Whatever, forget about that. I stopped worrying about how the other challengers were doing. Then, how about working in my country? Although I would give the right job to the right person, I also promised that they would live a steady life. However, right now the war with the Empire was near at hand, so they seemed to be afraid that they would be drafted into the war. I didn't intend to force anyone, but I couldn't guarantee that the three of them wouldn't get involved. Yes, Shinji said nervously. After discussing amongst the three of us, we decided to work for His Majesty Ramiru's country. Because Master Gadra is also going to serve this country, would you allow us to do the same? The other two nodded sternly, apparently on board with it. Understood. In that case, you're welcome to join us. Thank you very much. I promise to do my very best. I'll do my best. Just like that, the trio became part of my country. So, what kind of job should I give them? I'll let all Gadra-san manage the 60th floor. This way, he can research the demon colossus in order to pilot it in the future. That old man had an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and became deeply invested in the topic. So much so, that he couldn't contain his excitement when I presented him with the demon colossus. Right now, Adalman was supervising him. In the future, I had plans of letting Gadra become the guardian of the 60th floor. So, you guys don't want any part in the war, right? Ah, yes, Shinji replied hesitantly. There are people that we know, so if it is fine with you. Then, rather than becoming my subordinate, maybe they could become researchers in the dungeon. On that note, I decided to introduce the three of them to Ramiris. We strolled into the dungeon and headed to Ramiris's lab. Ramiris, this is Shinji and his friends. Would you like them to work at your place? Ah, Rimuru. Those kids that visited before. Yep. Ramiris had been looking for an assistant, but she hadn't found one yet that was up to task. She couldn't do things as freely as she wanted with foreign researchers. On the other hand, unintelligent monsters just couldn't understand her crazy ideas. She had Dino, but she couldn't rely on him alone. Right then, Shinji and the others appeared, and they happened to be the right people for the job. Yahoo! I'm Ramiris. Are you guys interested in working as my new assistants? Shinji was bereft of words, but he didn't seem to realize who Ramiris was. Fantastic. Hey Shinji. Fairies really exist. Mark exclaimed in surprise. Was this the first time that they met a fairy? I had no idea how long they had been in this world, but his reaction to seeing a fairy proved that this guy was more genuine than I thought. I am looking for useful assistants. I'll give you a good salary, so, what do you think? Rimuru also said that since we lack researchers, educated otherworlders are a great value. Ah, Ramiris had said too much. That was true though. They were highly skilled, and their thinking was flexible. They were always ready for work, so they'd make a great addition to the team. I agree. I think I'd be more at peace with research. Shin was straightforward with his opinion. Perhaps moved by this, Shinji quickly made up his mind. So then, please take us on. Hearing this reply, Ramiris fluttered around happily. Phew. She giggled haughtily, puffing out her non-existent chest. Seems like you guys are gonna be useful. Very well, you all passed. However, you must obey my orders to the letter, she declared to the trio. I was shocked by how quickly she flipped. It felt like her modest approach a moment ago had been a ruse. To say that it was typical of Ramiris would be an understatement. Ignoring the dumbfounded trio, Ramiris quickly came up with a list of conditions for them. They would be paid 3 gold coins per month, meaning their annual salary would be 36 gold coins, along with a bonus. It was better not to count on the bonus, though, because Ramiris paid it according to her mood, as did I. However, it looked like she would be taking charge of their food, clothing, and shelter. They would probably mainly use our cafeteria, but that shouldn't be an issue. That wrapped up Shinji and his 2 friends' speedy immigration.